Hi, my name is Ioana Șurubaru. I'm one of the vice presidents of ECYC. Welcome to Module 5. I will maybe wait a few minutes. Maybe some of you will enter. I'm right on time, so yeah. But anyway, in the meantime, because you can watch this later anyway, I'm really happy you are part of our online course. I'm really happy that you are engaged in something like this and you are interested in the topic. It's a really important topic right now, especially in Europe, but in all the world. And yeah, I will start my presentation then. Okay. Write me in case you can't see. In case you can't see or hear me, write me. I should see it. So today's module is about typology of youth work projects and responses to violent extremism and radicalisation. We will go to defining some concepts and detailing them. Then we will see how we can identify vulnerable and at-risk young people. And also we will go to youth work and violent extremism and radicalisation, some examples and some tools. Okay. First concept is civic engagement, being motivated to actively participate in developing and changing the civic life of the community one is part of, while respecting its values, can be a working definition of the civic engagement. Going further to critical citizenship, we can define it as having a critical reflection on the past, being aware and active in the present, and imagining and working to shape a type of future for the society. Marginalization is another concept, an important concept, which means pushing a certain group of people away from the society and ignoring their right to speak up and defend themselves, as well as restricting their possibilities to be active citizenship. I believe every single one of us has some type of group that they can think of right now as being marginalized. And at risk is defined by our really good friend Google as exposed to harm or danger. I think that the definition is short and on point. Okay, we will go into ways to identify vulnerable and at-risk young people. And first things first, we should define who vulnerable and at-risk young people are, so we can see them easier and we can be aware of them being around us. They are usually part of groups and communities which don't allow them to step out, to see the outside world, or to be aware of diversity, tolerance, or empathy, and so on. They are usually raised in communities based on strict values with an extremist tendency, or they are adopted by such communities. The above-mentioned communities can be easily identified because they provide support, a security feeling, and sometimes financial stability to keep young people active in the communities, of course. In other words, those communities usually take care of the well-being of young people, a well-being that is not taken care of by institutions or families or other other people that are that should do it. Okay. Where can we find vulnerable and at risk young people? Usually in areas and or communities with limited financial and social possibilities, where youth work is harder to access. Hint, hint, the previous point, where there are communities or groups that give financial and social possibilities to young people, because not being able to access youth work makes them go to those communities. And why is it important to identify vulnerable and at risk young people? Because those young people are at risk, and we can prevent violent extremism and radicalization behaviors through youth work in order to develop a further, safer future. Okay, we will go further into youth work in prevention of violent extremism and radicalization. I know 2 modules ago, or I might be wrong, module 3 was about the role of youth work in prevention of violent extremism and radicalization, so I will not insist on this too much. But I really want to point out 2 things that at the moment not many youth work organizations are aware of the topic, or they don't have the capacity to do the prevention because they don't have professionals that are trained to do so. Prevention of violent extremism and radicalization is important matter, and sometimes if it is not done right, it might do more harm than good. So many organizations prefer to step out of the topic and don't do the prevention. And also, youth work helps young people to develop themselves as critical thinkers and individuals with respect for diversity. And it's also a big helper on the social dimension of a person. Of course, youth work is usually done in organizations and youth centers or youth clubs. So the social dimension comes within. Many young people are reaching out to youth work because they need this social dimension to be fulfilled in their life. Okay, we will go to examples of youth work in prevention of violent extremism and radicalization. The examples are structured on 5 categories, and all of them are, of course, related to youth work. You can find all 5 of them and all the examples in the Youth Partnership publication. Youth Work Against Violent Radicalization is one of the publications that my colleague Diana presented you in, I think, the second module. Also, at the bottom of the slide, you can see the link, and you will receive the presentation and also the link to the publication. So you can read more examples and go further into the ones that I'm presenting. So the first category is peer education, and we have an organization from Germany with a project called Akran, which means peer. Young peer educators between 18 and 28 with a Muslim background engaged in an educational process with other young people. This project has an holistic approach to preventing discrimination and radicalization, including preventing violent Judaism and making young people aware of internet propaganda. Also, they are aware of the importance of preventing Islamophobia and other forms of racism in schools by offering diversity and anti-discrimination trainings to teachers. Okay, the second category is online campaigns and digital media, and we have an example from an organization from Belgium. In this project, they use digital tools to counter Islamic radicalization and hate speech, such as digital storytelling, coding, or other film techniques. Also, they are really good at increasing global citizenship, and they manage to use technology to enable youngsters' social mobility. They have some offline group storytellings, and after that, participants, based on the feedback they receive, they edit their story with images, music, and voice recordings. Going further, we have the category called cooperation with other stakeholders, and we have an example from Norway, where they developed a model of close cooperation with the correctional services, the police, and some schools. And this model helped to identify persons and environments at risk of radicalization leading to violence. And also young people identified and including in the program have been supported with mentoring through an individual plan. Moving on, we have the category called providing opportunities by the League of Tolerance from Ukraine. And it's a sports and human rights education project. This project provides the opportunity for youth sports workers and volunteers to use human rights education with sport activities for resolving social problems, which is why it is important to facilitate that they acquire key competencies in human rights education. This project aims regions affected by armed conflicts and regions hosting refugees. And also the activities include youth, but also people with disabilities, Roma communities, former soldiers, and so on. So in this way, they ensure diversity in the group. Hint, hint, the diversity that young people should be aware of. The last category is education and training, and we have an example from Vienna, Austria, on open youth work. They have a youth center open to young people generally, but also mostly to young people who are vulnerable to extremism and violent radical ideas. The organization's youth workers are trained in the recent developments in radicalization and in religious and political issues. Those youth workers organize various leisure activities with vulnerable youth in order to build a respectful relationship based on trust. And also they create the space to discuss topics including sexuality, media literacy, and issues related to migration. Really, really important topics for young people. Youth workers also offer those vulnerable youngsters both practical perspectives and spiritual orientation without specifically supporting or downgrading one of others' religious approach. It's really worth mentioning something. Prevention can start as a proactive action, or if needed, it can be on the spot. And it's really important to maybe make a parallel between the two of them. So mostly on the spot prevention should have no more than 3 steps, and it should start with observing young people, observing their behaviors, their way to act around the others, how they act when they are alone, maybe observe what they do in the youth center, and then there should be an indirect talk between the youth worker and the young person or young people, depending on the environment, where the youth worker, if he or she thinks that there's something that he needs to be aware of, he should go further and investigate it and talk with the young people and see if they have a tendency towards extremism. And then, if that confirms, there should be a direct talk, maybe something similar to the ones that we just saw in Austria. Then we have the other part of prevention, which is a proactive action, is considered as being a proactive action, where it starts earlier, and a youth worker should create a safe space for young people where they have the comfort they need to open up, to speak to others, to be engaged in different activities. The youth workers also should listen to the problems or just the stories that young people have. And also, this is a good way for youth workers to see how deep the problem and the tendency for extremism, if there's any, in young people, go. The youth worker should empower, as you talked before with my colleague, empower young people to step up and be active citizens, and show them the benefits of being an active citizen and not having extremism tendencies. And also, of course, a youth worker should promote diversity. He or she should involve young people in as many activities with as many different people as he or she can. And something that is important for both sides is check the progress. A youth worker should also check the progress after every step, after every point. The progress needs to be checked, so the youth worker has feedback and can improve its way of working. Okay, well, this is it. Thank you very much. I will put up on the platform some questions for you that you can answer. And I also really want you to go on the platform and engage in conversation with your course colleagues. Maybe you can share, and please do, any other examples of youth work in prevention of violent extremism and radicalization. Everyone is really interested in knowing as many examples as possible. I know that on the internet and on publications you can find everything, and maybe the best examples are in your own organization. So please share. And yeah, see you next week, same time. I'm really happy you stayed with me today. Bye.